Assalamu alaikum ji. On behalf of the Office of Advancement, I'd like to give you all a very warm welcome to the Leaders at LUMS session. We have these sessions almost every quarter, and the idea is to bring industry leaders to LUMS who can come and share with you, their experiences, their stories, their professional and personal stories that can be inspirational to all of you and from which you can learn a lot when you step out in the real world. So I'd like to, give a very warm welcome to our leader at LUMS today. This is Mr. Kashan Hasan, who's the CEO of Shan Foods, and Maria, who's the head of corporate communications at Shan Foods. So with your permission, Razak Sab, we'll start the session. A bit about Shan Foods. Shan Foods started in 1981, and they've made Pakistan proud because it started as a small operation, and now it's operating in 70 countries around the world in all five continents. Okay, and the consumption is not only restricted to Pakistanis and the Pakistani diaspora. We learned that there are a lot of other nationalities who use Shan foods, the spices and all the amazing, ready to cook food stuff that they have, and that's really amazing. So they've really done Pakistan proud by being a multinational. And we've had the privilege of interacting with their chairman, Mr. Sikandar Sultan. He has an amazing story to tell, and we're looking towards Kashan to share that story with us today. As far as Kashan is concerned, Kashan Hasan has been with Reckitt for a long time. He's he did his graduation from IBA, and now he's the CEO of Shan Foods. He has experience of working globally in different assignments, and he left Reckitt as the general manager there. So, and also as the moderator for today's session, we have the one and only Mac. So Mr. Mohammed Ali Khan is the Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives at LUMS, as we all know him. And so I'd like to request Mac to please come to the stage and then welcome Mr. Kashan Hasan with me. Thank you so much.
You want to hear? Okay. Whenever you want.
I'll sit here.
Okay. Thank you, Nuzat. Assalamu alaikum. You actually stole my thunder because I had rehearsed most of what you said. So now I have to improvise. Anyway, welcome, Kashan. Welcome to the audience. So I think, as Nuzat said, this is a regular feature. And we have a bunch of aspiring leaders here and some actual leaders as well. And we are here to learn from you. I thought we would keep it somewhat lighthearted and like a conversation rather than a formal interview. We'll get to discover more about your leadership journey. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us about where you grew up, because I'm sure there's a whole personal journey before your leadership journey starts.
Right. Well, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I think childhood was, a very, very stable, fun time. Born and grew up in Karachi.
Okay.
A Karachi that was, in many ways, as it is today, very crowded, hectic, fast-paced. But also, I think in some ways, it was more diverse than what it is today. Irani hotel hote the kono pe, jahan pe we knew we could always get a nice cheap meal and a good meal. My teachers were from Sri Lanka, from Ghana.
What school were you in?
I was at St. Patrick's.
Same as me.
Oh, excellent. So some more distinguished alumni than others.
But, not sure about that, but yes, I did spend a few years there.
I was there for about 11 years. From my, basically I did my schooling there. Both my brothers went to the same school. We lived in a joint family. My grandfather's house from, the time I was born to maybe when I, went off. And started my own, my first job, which took me outside Karachi. So a good, stable childhood, very different time. घरों के दरवाजे खुले होते थे, gates खुले होते थे. We lived on a main road, but we never felt the need. So रात को सोते हुए you'd close the gate. Now you don't see that in Karachi anymore, or probably most parts of the country. But a lot of freedom. You could cycle anywhere you want. Play cricket till it gets dark. I feel like we are much more protective about where our children spend their time, and थोड़ा सा भी बाहर निकलते हैं. They're probably in a more dangerous space now, which is cyberspace, right, online on their phones, but at least within the safety of the house. So I think it was a very good childhood, surrounded by family, cousins, uncles, aunts. वो स्कूल ख़त्म हुआ उसके बाद my brother had gone to IBA a few years before that. And I wasn't really sure.
Can I stop you there for a minute? In that safe and secure environment of Karachi, which I also recall in the 60s, and you went to school, so were there any early signs of hidden leadership talents or traits like co-curricular, extracurricular, otherwise?
Not really. And I think that therefore for students who may not really be leaders today or even aspiring to be, I can tell you there is a lot of scope and hope, because I wasn't. I think I was generally shy. I think I was not somebody who wanted the spotlight per se. But I do remember that when I was given a responsibility, or if it was maybe almost thrust on me, because I learned a bit late कि अगर आप पीछे भी बैठे हैं क्लास में तो वो कभी-कभी ज़्यादा notice हो जाता है. It makes sense to sit right in the front. But if they would pick you up and say आपने ये करना है, because you're always sitting in the back and not saying anything, I would like the challenge, and I think that I knew. And the other thing is, the school we went to, मेरे time पे तकरीबन 3,000 लड़के होते थे उस school में, and I realized that you have to kind of do something to be noticed, both good and bad. But I remember मैं अपने मोहल्ले में, गली में, घर में, we used to, there was no Insta and Snapchat and all of that, so we used to actually go out of the house, play in the garden, go out on the street, run, cricket, football, हर चीज़ का. And I thought I was a fast runner, right? Till एक कोई 5 साल गुजरने के बाद किसी को ख्याल आया स्कूल में कि स्पोर्ट्स डे कर लेते हैं. एंड वो स्पोर्ट्स डे में उन्होंने कोई 200 लड़कों को लाइन में लगाया. उन्होंने कहा कि everybody runs the top 10 or 15 will be selected to go and represent whatever their house or something. And I was very confident before this कि I'm fantastic and I will run really fast and I'm going to be right up there. वो जब वो रेस ख़त्म हुई तो I was somewhere in the middle. आधे लोग मुझसे पहले क्रॉस कर चुके थे बाकी. So I realized कि you've got to, in order to create an impact, you have to be somewhere near the top.
Right.
And I think those were early कि यार अगर 3,000 लड़कों में notice होना है या कुछ करना है तो you've got to be doing something that maybe fast running isn't that thing, but then what is that thing, and then what are you going to do about it? And I think that's kind of where the early sort of interest came in. You want to create an impact, you want to make a difference. I would rather you say that I met Kashan, I don't like him, than to say I met Kashan, I don't remember him. Right? Oh, okay. So I felt like, of course, it's better if you say I do like him. That's the best.
And
option.
Remember him.
And remember him. But अगर वो नहीं हो रहा तो कम से कम ये तो हो जाए. Indifference is something that I kind of decided that I have to do something about.
So how do you carve out a niche for yourself, right? In that environment, you wanted to have something that people remembered you for. So
again, I looked at how do I play to my strengths? So if running fast isn't that, what could it be? I was a footballer, so और वो मैं ऐसे ही करता था so I decided okay, let me spend some more time doing it. Now in that school, and you've been there, the cricket team was super competitive, right? Because everybody wants to play cricket in this country, right? Even after everything we've achieved. But I think football में इतना वो नहीं था. I said okay, let me get in here and at least make the school team, And of course उसके लिए भी बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ी. But I decided that I want to be at least in that top 11 somewhere, so I can say कि यार मैं ये कर रहा था. And that's how I said again, I wanted to be a part of the sports day. So वो आप sprint में तो नहीं कर सकते. But I realized कि मैं long jump कर सकता हूँ. Again, less competition maybe. And I said, okay, let me build a name here, and then I can, stand on a podium somewhere and then build on it from there. कि अच्छा ये इसमें था. And I think that is something that I've tried to achieve since then, in the sense that we've got to make sure that you are making a difference, creating an impact of some kind.
So one of the things that you talk about as part of your 4 kind of leadership credos is discipline. So growing up, did you exercise a lot of self-discipline? Was there very tight discipline in the family, household? And how does that influence the kind of leadership journey?
I think I was fortunate कि एक तो घर में भी discipline बहुत था. फिर मैं जिस school में गया, वहाँ पे भी discipline was, the primary thing. You couldn't be late, you couldn't have long nails or hair, and, it was a very different time as well. But whatever, in terms of, I realized the value of that discipline in helping me achieve my goals, which I still do today, right? So I have to make sure that whether it is arriving on time for a meeting, whether it is making sure कि हम जो operating model बनाते हैं उसको हम discipline के साथ follow करें, because there will be all the reasons कि ये इस महीने ये नहीं करना चाहिए, या ये इस हफ्ते छोड़ दें last week किया था, या ये सारे reasons हो सकते हैं कि ये नहीं होना चाहिए. But I think to me what has helped me throughout my career is self-discipline. कि आई एम नॉट वेटिंग फॉर कि अगर मेरा एक मैनेजर बहुत डिसिप्लिन्ड है और दूसरा नहीं है तो मैं भी लैक्स हो जाऊँगा. आई विल होल्ड ऑन टू व्हाट मैटर्स टू मी and continue to drive my values. And this one is very important to me. It's almost a measure by which I determine how good a professional is, an individual is, कि ये वाली basic चीज़ें जो हैं वो ठीक होनी चाहिए.
ठीक. And then you went to that other business school. We're not going to hold that against you. but how is that important? Because, you read about people who are multi-billionaires, very successful, and they turn out to be college dropouts. On the other hand, there are people who follow a very structured path, Harvard Business School or some other business school. How was it for you in terms of the influence that IBA played in your future?
I think, first of all, to clarify, उस वक्त LUMS को चंदी साल हुए थे 5 साल. It was not in the, it was one of the many schools that was coming up, right? And
we'll give you that.
IBA was maybe 45 years old or 50 years old then. So consideration set में नहीं था.
Okay.
If I were graduating now, I would think of it very differently. Okay. So with that fact established, I just want to say that I think IBA kind of gave us a taste of the real world in the sense that हमारे टीचर्स कुछ बहुत ज़्यादा उस ज़माने में को बहुत स्कॉलरली नहीं थे, PhDs नहीं थे, but they kind of taught us how you a very practical way of how you get by.
Grounded थे.
जी बिल्कुल. Again हमने discipline की बात की. उस ज़माने में there was very strict discipline around there. One of the things that kind of interested me into even applying was the fact that somebody told me कि बड़ा मुश्किल है, right? उस वक्त जिस साल मैंने टेस्ट दिया था in 1996, more than 2,200 people took the test.
Wow.
And 80 of us were in that class, right? So 2,200 तो वो थे who thought that they could get in. Because I know many people who didn't even take the test. कि ये तो नहीं होगा. This is very hard. And when I heard these statistics, I was like, okay, I want to see if I'm going to make this. ये वही जो पुरानी स्कूल वाली बात थी ना कि जब भागेंगे तो आगे आ सकते हैं कि नहीं. And they used to have अभी भी शायद वही process है, but पहले एक टेस्ट होता था, फिर एक इंटरव्यू के राउंड्स होते थे, फिर ग्रुप डिस्कशंस होते, फिर वो पहले वाला टेस्ट वापस होता था to see कि आपकी consistency in score है कि नहीं है, kind of thing. So that day wasn't a fluke, right? And then they would bring it down to about 80 people, and those people would then
join the program.
So I think one of the things that initially interested me, my brother had gotten in. He was 4 or 5 years older than me, so by the time I was getting started, he had a job in a good multinational, and he was the star for everyone. So we were like, "ये कर लेते हैं."
Role
Why
model
not?
वो था.
Role model वो था. And शायद और options उस ज़माने, and I'm talking about a long time ago, but again यही था कि डॉक्टर बन जाते हैं या इंजीनियर बन जाते हैं. तो बोला यार this sounds a little bit, शायद पढ़ाई कम करनी पड़ेगी. So
So sounds like you were used to being competitive and also being disciplined from a fairly early age.
yes, yeah.
Let's take a pause here and see if there are any questions from the audience on this early part of your life, because I'm sure this resonates with the people in the room. Guys, any questions? Go ahead.
You have explained that you were quite disciplined जी, in your early phase of life. So, how do you define discipline? Because nowadays, discipline means that making others do things by force. And so, in your talk, I have understood that it was consistency and delaying emotional gratification. So, can you define for us the different inevitable ingredients of the discipline that you have observed in the early phase of your life?
I think to me it meant, standing by your commitments, right? So it meant कि अगर मुझे, whether it is attending a class, whether it is making sure that, you have made a commitment to do something, you've got to follow that through. That's what it meant to me. You spoke about consistency, and I agree. I think it is relentless. One of my favorite words in the English language is relentless. कि वो चीज़ जो बार बार करते रहें. Because you have to, I've spent a large portion of my life in sales. आप एक दिन जाते हैं एक दुकान पे, हर चीज़ अपने हिसाब से सही करके आ जाते हैं. When you go there 3 days later, हर चीज़ बिगड़ चुकी होती है. Because आपके जैसे 50 लोग और आते हैं, वो उसी शेल्फ पे अपनी चीज़ें सही करके जाते हैं. So it is relentless. It is consistent. It is every day, every store, every call, going and doing what is, required. So I think एक तो ये कि that's what discipline means to me. कि अगर कोई commitment है, that's something that I take very seriously. Whether it is, my business, whether it's our people, कि हम जो बात करें लोगों के लिए, हम अपनी commitment पूरी करें. Otherwise, there is no, that's the value of a person. What they say they will do. Otherwise, people will stop listening to what you're saying. And then I think the third thing is that for me it was always about, doing the right thing. And so therefore it becomes a little bit easy sometimes because you don't have to push yourself. If you believe that this is the right thing to do, and to me being disciplined was the right thing to do. Because there's, and आज भी अगर मैं देखता हूँ कि मैं, if I see somebody doing work which shows कि यार जल्दी में किया है, इसका मतलब है लास्ट मिनट पे शुरू किया होगा, इसका मतलब है कि प्लान नहीं किया था कि किस तरह करना है, इसका मतलब है कि डिसिप्लिन नहीं है. देन आई स्टार्ट थिंकिंग कि इसको इससे बड़ा काम देना है कि नहीं, अगर ये नहीं ठीक हुआ तो वहाँ क्या गड़बड़ हो सकती है. एंड दीज आर द थिंग्स दैट आई, that's my way of measuring other people, seeing how they do.
Right.
So that's why it's a core value for me and it's important.
So you take a much broader, holistic view of discipline. It's a way of life and an approach to how you do things. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. So you're done with IBA, and now you have this critical choice of starting your first job. How does that come about? You didn't choose the typical Citibank, ABN AMRO type of route, but you went in another direction. Tell us about that.
But they didn't choose me. मैंने apply तो शायद हर जगह ही किया था.
Okay.
But the one that came back was Gillette at that
Okay.
time. Gillette was a standalone company. Gillette Pakistan was a subsidiary of the Gillette company. बाद में वो फिर it got acquired a few years after that by Procter and became part of their business. छोटी सी business थी पाकिस्तान में. हर साल वो एक management trainee graduate लेते थे. मेरे साल में for some odd reason उन्होंने 2 ले लिए थे. And I think I was, the first one was clearly the one they liked more. फिर उन्होंने एक और की जगह बना के एक और ले लिया. And the reason I say this is because हम दोनों को marketing में जाना था. and he got the opportunity. और मुझे उन्होंने कहा आपने आना है तो sales में आ जाएं, marketing में अब जगह नहीं है. So I kind of assessed कि वो ज़्यादा पसंद आया होगा. And then I said, okay, you know, I mean, I need to start somewhere. So I did it. And I think I did sales for a few years, and then eventually I got a chance to go into marketing. But तब तक इतनी आदत एक्शन की हो गई थी, नंबर्स की हो गई थी, टारगेट अचीवमेंट में जो हाई मिलता था उसकी हो गई थी कि आई डिडंट एंजॉय माई सेल्फ एंड आई वांटेड टू, जो चीज़ मुझे चाहिए थी हमेशा से, व्हेन आई फाइनली गॉट इट, आई वांटेड टू आफ्टर अ लिटिल व्हाइल वांटेड टू मूव बैक इनटू सेल्स, एंड आई डिड, बिकॉज वो दूर से लगता था कि यार ये मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, और गर्मी में धूप में कहाँ ख्वार हो रहे हैं बाहर खड़े हुए, let's do strategy and let's build brands. But once you get into the, to me, I tell
Into
people
the
even
trenches.
today, yes, that's where the action is, right? The action is in the market. The action is not in the boardrooms. And today I'm in Lahore. I was not supposed to go to the market, but the salesman in me, it just doesn't. So we went and we saw a few stores. सुबह हम किसी meeting के लिए गए, उसके बाद हमने. So that's where the action is. And,
It's such a great point, especially because we have business students here, I'm sure, and MBAs and business grads typically thumb their noses at sales. As you said, they would rather be in strategy or corporate finance or marketing. I think it's a great life lesson, because you can expand on it. One shouldn't shy away from sales, because it may look less glamorous from the outside, but actually in terms of the learning value, it's huge.
Absolutely. And I think, that sort of break into sales, which was not even my plan, so I can't even say I planned it like this. What it did for me was, 8-9 months into the job, I remember sitting in the boardroom in a meeting where the other gentleman who had joined in marketing was being asked a question, कि ये जो launch है, ये क्यों नहीं सही चल रही है, ये क्यों. And I realized that because I was spending most of my time in the field, I knew the answers to that question. And after seeing him struggle for a bit, I started to say, actually, ये नहीं हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है.
Because you had the insights.
Because I had the insights, not because I was smarter than anybody, but just because I was given मुझे कहा आप वहाँ जाएं और ये करें, तो आप उसमें सीख ही जाते हैं कि क्या हो रहा है. So that helped me to kind of, and then people were able to see that, कि अच्छा इसको ये पता है. There were people who were very senior in the business. उनके I was looking at कि this is a bit of an aha moment in the sense कि अच्छा ये, and then I realized कि now I see the value of. So after 1 year, they only had a place for one, so they had to confirm one. And they confirmed me, even though when 12 months ago, he was the one who was definitely interviewed better and they liked him more. लेकिन and again I say, it's not because of anything I did, it's because I was at the right place at the right time, even if though it was not my choosing. But it helped me to build an insight into the business, which they saw कि इस लड़के को पता है क्या हो रहा है. So that helped me.
And I think that's another great insight. Timing is all important. And when you get these breaks, how you cash in, take advantage, and then build on that. So you're at Gillette, you're successful. What happens then?
Well, I think what happens then is, what happens to a lot of us, the dream to move out of Pakistan. जो हमें, I think 5-6 years into the job market, we were, उससे पहले शायद इतना लोग पूछते नहीं हैं, उस वक्त आपको लगता है अब थोड़ा experience भी हो गया. So I found an opportunity in Dubai. And me and my wife packed up and we said, we're never coming back, हो गया. अब हम जा रहे हैं एक ही दफ़ा और अब वहीं रहेंगे. And जैसे होता है हमेशा कि the grass is always greener on the other side. So जब गए तो
turned out to be sand.
In that case, yes. But I think obviously, it's a great place and a lot to offer. But you then also kind of realize the value of the things that you've kind of left behind. Having said that, I encourage students to absolutely find whatever avenues you can. The experiences in the last 20 plus years, I've spent about 10 of them outside Pakistan. And I think it has helped me understand business, understand people, understand cultures much better. 2006 we moved to Dubai. And in a very short period of time, I would say about 1.5 years, we actually came back. And that's when I joined. I was offered a position by Reckitt, and I joined Reckitt, but the position was in Pakistan. And even though जब मैं जा रहा था, तो I thought I would not come back, but
Right.
they showed me a career and a journey, and they said in the next 10 years you can be here in the next, and that I wanted. I knew I was good. I wanted the opportunities. Not every place gives you those opportunities. So, and they were not just saying it. I knew people who had been through this, so I knew that there's actual practical evidence, an empirical fact कि ये लोग opportunities देते हैं. So then I said, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter where I'm living. I'm going to go back, and I will build on it from there. So that's when I joined Reckitt, and I was there for the next 15 and a half years.
And the professional transition from Pakistan to Dubai and then later, you found that your education here and everything had prepared you well? Like, was it easy to transition?
No, I think it wasn't that easy. I think, Dubai is a relatively easier place because it is in many ways like home. A lot of people are from here. Culturally, बहुत शायद different नहीं है. I think my first sort of proper orientation of a different culture would be when I moved to South Africa in 2010. And that was a very different place. And I had never really gone there even before to visit. So वो पहली दफ़ा गया, and we kind of started living there. I was there for about 3 years. And I think वहाँ पे मैंने different cultures, different ways of working. हमें लगता है कि this is how the world must be because this is all I have seen. But the world is not like that. And I think that kind of, I think initially it was tough. Challenge in understanding, and I had a customer-facing role. So it was not just understanding the organization and its people, but you're dealing with customers who will be placing orders, who will determine how successful you are or not. So understand, and they come from a different culture, and they'll say कि अच्छा पता नहीं यार ये multinational में लोग बाहर से आ जाते हैं, उनको पता तो है नहीं कि हमारे यहाँ क्या हो रहा है. But I think from that to kind of building those relationships with our customers, with our own teams, with my team, I was managing a small team over there as well. Unko samajhna, I think that's when you kind of but I think if you have the basic sense, emotional intelligence, some basic intelligence, you learn, you make mistakes, you figure out के I still remember मैंने एक दिन Friday वाले दिन कोई 3:30 बजे एक मीटिंग रख ली, तो आगे लोग बैठे हुए थे, but I could see their faces के कोई खुश नहीं लग रहे खास, enthusiastic नहीं है जितना शायद हम पाकिस्तान में होते हैं अगर 3:30 बजे Friday को मीटिंग होती. And I realized, then somebody kind of said कि यार ये कोई टाइम है, Friday का दिन है, लंच के बाद.
What are you thinking?
बहुत सारे लोग लंच पे जाते थे, वहाँ आते ही नहीं थे वापस, वहाँ से फिर उनका वीकेंड शुरू हो गया. So these are the kind of things you learn and the mistakes you made. And I realized कि यार इस वक्त कोई मीटिंग में आइंदा नहीं रखूँगा. People were like यार बाहर से आ जाते हैं और पता है नहीं कि क्या करना है क्या नहीं. So these were the kind of examples. या कोई किसी चीज़ को देख के कोई phrase बोल देगा कि this is this. अब मुझे नहीं पता कि ये इसकी तारीफ कर रहा है, इसकी बुराई का. I don't know. I've never heard this phrase before. And this is a customer, and I'm trying to list a product, and I don't understand कि ये मतलब क्या है. So I don't know how. So I'm like thinking, अब मैं इसको बताऊँ नहीं पता या क्या करूँ या how should. So these are the little things and the big things that kind of
So as you continue to go up in your career, was your growth linear or was it like zigzag? Were you transferring in and out of functions to get broad-based experience, or was it just like sales and marketing all the way?
No, I think it was mostly sales and marketing. I think within that, yes, there would be projects, there were things that would happen. आप 6 महीने के लिए कोई supply के साथ project करना शुरू हो गए, and but then again, you have been invited to that because of your commercial background and not because you have any knowledge of how this works. So इस किस्म की चीज़ें ज़रूर थीं. Warehousing projects किए, demand forecasting पे काम किया, things like that. That kind of helped me to get a better understanding of business overall.
So as an insight, or for the young people here who might be wanting to plan their careers, is that what approach is better, or are there trade-offs in both, like linear versus?
No, I think there are trade-offs in both. I would say कि जितना ज़्यादा experience इकट्ठा कर सकते हैं उतना अच्छा है. So maybe that kind of trajectory is better. Having said that, it takes time. and it can be tricky in the sense that you may end up somewhere and you're not doing well. And unfortunately, corporates and companies remember your last few months and your last quarter much more than they remember your long term, right?
Right.
So if you are not doing well, अगर आपने 10 साल sales में लगा के बहुत अच्छा career बनाया, फिर आपने कहा चलो यार marketing कर लेते हैं, because कल को मैं general manager बनूंगा, या it'll help me. But then a year later, people would have forgotten those last 10 years. You are only as good as your last month, your last quarter, your last project, your last launch. So you've got to make sure, so that's why I say it's a bit tricky. You've got to make sure that you have a right to win where you're going. That's important.
और फिर एक दिन आप बन गए जनरल मैनेजर.
जी, बिल्कुल. 2020 January में, I moved back to Pakistan for the third time. And a country that I told you about कि मैं एक दफ़ा जा रहा था और सोच रहा था कि होगा.
नहीं आएंगे वापस.
But frankly, I think for a lot of people who want to go out, I want to say करें. You will learn, you will grow, but also you will have maybe a little bit more respect for what your country offers you. तो वापस आए as general manager for the Reckitt business, which was great. It was a business I joined as a middle manager उससे 10-12 साल पहले. So it was a great honor. It was humbling. It was a large business, in the sense कि structure काफ़ी था पाकिस्तान में. And did that. आने के 1-2 महीने बाद पाकिस्तान में COVID आ गया. So then we had to, one of our brands was Dettol, and we had to deal with, 10x more demand, and and doing all of that, production badhao, capacity badhao, while we are at home. And,
Right.
It's difficult to
Managing
keep
that complexity.
Yes.
So maybe we take another pause and see if at this stage of your career, people have questions or comments even. And please identify yourself. If you are a student, just talk about your program. कौन से program में आप, and if you have a question, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll move on. So ये leadership journey. So now you're at the top. Magar, I'm sure there were people other than yourself behind the scenes who had either coached you or mentored you, because we have these people in our lives, right? Advisors, counselors, coaches. So आपके यहाँ क्या था? How did that influence your growth?
I think we're always looking towards people who we've seen do things and repeat the things we like, not do things that we didn't like. So मैंने probably बहुत सारे general managers के साथ काम किया था over my many years, और मैं global sales में था, UK में था, probably मैं कोई 20 different Reckitt के countries में गया हूँगा, senior management के साथ काम किया होगा different projects में. So I had a lot of exposure, and I would always pick up things that I would say, if I get a chance, this is the kind of, leader I want to be, right? And similarly...
Give us an example. Something that you picked up that you are practicing now.
Right. So I think one thing that I was always clear about was, you've got to listen. You've got to make sure that in order to take people along, you are giving them a chance to say their bit for a number of reasons. One, they may say something that you hadn't thought about. Two, they may say something that you had, and your opinion might be different, but it's important that they understand why you are making the decisions you are. So listen and communicate. I think those who did it well, those who go on the floor, I would go and sit with an assistant brand manager and say कि ये इस launch पे क्या चल रहा है और ये क्या हो रहा है. I would just walk out onto the floor and ask somebody कि इस महीने का number क्या हो रहा है इस brand के ऊपर, and then get insights that I wouldn't even get in the boardroom. I learned more from people who were part of my teams than I learned from my bosses throughout my career. So I understood the value of that. So, and I used to see people who would do things like this. And I was like, this is something because it gets tougher. There are sometimes forces that kind of stop you from saying कि यार आप वहाँ कहाँ बात कर रहे हैं, आप हमें ये तो बहुत operational चीज़ है, इसमें मत जाएं. But I've learned that it's always in the details. You have got to get into the details. Even now people tell me कि ये आप weekly एक operations meeting करते हैं, ये तो आपके करने वाले काम नहीं है.
माइक्रो मैनेजिंग नहीं हो जाती?
नहीं, देखें, it's one thing to know what is happening. It's another to micromanage,
Okay.
right? So the way I look at it is कि अगर मैं once a week I spend an hour in an operations meeting जिसमें हम production, sales, marketing, launch क्या चीज़ें हो रही हैं वो हमारी clear वो format बना हुआ है उसका discipline के साथ. If we follow that, that means for the rest of the week I don't need to get involved in things that are operational. So somebody might say that this is you spending too much time doing this. But what I look at, and this is reviews, this is not managing. लोग काम कर रहे हैं, you're just making sure that there are no barriers to execution, that people are talking to each other, that, an issue that somebody might have comes here, all the key decision makers are in the room, we take a call and move forward, right? Micromanage tab hoga if I'm the only one taking the call.
Okay.
But if it is your function or your area, I'll take your view and I'll say, okay, this makes, in most cases, we're surrounded by good people. So what you say makes sense. You're like, let's do this. But you just facilitate. And then hopefully you do enough of it that you don't need to be doing it. You can take a step back and then the rest is happening.
Right.
Right?
तो बाहर से जब लोग देखते हैं लीडर्स की ज़िंदगी और CEOs की पर्टिकुलर, इट्स अ वेरी ग्लैमरस व्यू कि जी दिस गाइस आर जेट सेटिंग अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, एक्सपेंसिव लंचेस, बिजनेस एक्सपेंस अकाउंट्स. आपका भी दिन इसी तरह गुजरता है?
Honestly, after a while, I think it depends on what matters.
Okay.
And I think these things start to matter less.
Okay.
So I remember how much I would enjoy traveling at one point in time in my life. I don't think I enjoy it that much, anymore. We stay in such fancy hotels, but we're not in the room. रात को जाते हैं सोने के लिए, सुबह उठते हैं और फिर निकल जाते हैं, because everybody knows, every eye is on you in the organization. So it's very important that you are at the regional office at 9 a.m., not 9:05.
Optics
because
are
सब देख
important.
रहे हैं कि because everybody there also sees this.
Right.
And then also 9 बजे जाने का फायदा है, you see कौन-कौन नहीं आया हुआ है अभी तक, right?
So it's back to discipline as well.
Again, so I think yes, it's not a luxury, it's almost a necessity to be doing the traveling, to be meeting people, to be meeting partners and customers and so on and so forth, right? So it becomes a part of it. I don't know if I would say I enjoy it or dislike it. I just think it's something that is needed to be done. But yes, there's a value to being at home, and you miss out on that as well. You've got to have the right balance.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
My question is, you lived a life, you have a lot of experiences. In this, do you realize does GPA matter? In the longer run, does GPA matter? And secondly, adding to it, I'm a student of SSC and I'm doing computer sciences. But I'm no longer at peace with computer science, so I want to do something different in the future. So do you think it's easy to change career paths as well, along with the GPA question?
Great question.
Right, excellent. Well, honestly, if you find out what my GPA was, you would realize it really makes no difference. I don't think it matters, honestly. Let me tell you, because eventually it's a, I was in the car. Maria is here with us, and she's a direct report. She works with me, and as do maybe 10 or 12 other people जो directly मुझे report करते हैं. And if you were to ask me, where did my CFO go to college? Where did my chief marketing officer do his MBA? I don't know. I really don't. Forget about GPA. It's irrelevant, right? All I know is क्या experiences लेके आते हैं. All I know is what are their strengths and weaknesses today? What are the areas where they can complement me? What are the areas where I need to jump in and say कि यार तुम ये अच्छा करते हो, तुम ये अच्छा करती हो, ये अच्छा नहीं करती. So let me help you do that, right? Then this doesn't matter. Having said that, I used to be like you, and I used to be very concerned कि GPA तो अच्छी है नहीं, कैसे इसको graduate directory में छुपाएं, कि क्या किया था. But once you get your foot in the door, that sort of first break, then I think what matters is what you've done in the last 6 months, in the last 1 year, what you've learned. जो मैं पहले example नहीं दे रहा था कि they put me in sales, मैं field में होता था. I really got a sense of actually what shopkeepers are saying, what retailers want, why this plan is not working, which we will never understand if we are in the head office sitting there. So those things matter. So I would say, of course, you want to have good academics. We all do. We all try hard and do that. If I could go back, I would definitely work harder at college. That much I know. GPA बेहतर होगी कि नहीं मुझे नहीं पता. लेकिन I would definitely want to put in more effort because I think I could have done better. On your second part about computer science and switching, I think you can switch at any. मेरा अपना view ये है, and there are teachers here and they are much more equipped to maybe answer this question. But as somebody who runs a business, what I can tell you is that you can switch 10 years into your career, and just all I would say is just work to your strengths. And we don't always know what they are, and आजकल तो इतनी sources of information है कि जहाँ जाओ आपको एक नई story पता चलती है. But I would just say कि see where you have a right to win and try to do that. The example I was giving earlier, and build on it from there. Success is contagious. If you start winning, you get used to it. Winning is a habit. इसीलिए for all of those, अगर आप Formula 1 देखते हैं तो आप देखते हैं कि एक टीम जीतती है ना, वो 8 साल तक जीतती रहती है. फिर जब वो उनको हराता है फाइनली, तो जो दूसरे आते हैं वो 8 साल तक जीतते रहते हैं. Right? It's a habit. You've got to make sure, and it's not only talent, right? There are many other things that come together for you to be able to win, right? And a lot of it is over here. So you've got to make sure that you are winning no matter what you're doing. You're good at it. You enjoy it. If you're doing that, you will find your way. If not, मैं भी वैसे ही चला गया था कि यार भाई ने किया और अगर डॉक्टर नहीं बनना, I didn't have much of a passion for anything else, so I went in to do it. But once I started doing it, I wanted to be good. I wanted to make sure that I'm that sales manager who hits every target every month. And that meant कि हर रोज मेहनत करनी होगी क्योंकि सिर्फ इतने ही 24-25 दिन ही होते हैं working days in a month to deliver that number. And then when that would happen and you would hit that target, I would absolutely, like, that feeling was something that you couldn't get, right? And I loved that. And then I said I want to do more of that. So you've got to find what are those things that excite you. And I think it's perfectly okay to make a switch if you want to. If this is not exciting you anymore, find something else. You'll find your way. Right?
So we are going to touch, we're about 15 minutes left, and I want to use the time efficiently, but I also want to cover a few more issues with you. In the 21st century, in this era, you can't be a leader really unless you also embrace technology, right? It's pervasive, and I think COVID has demonstrated that, and you've probably seen that as well. So in terms of being a leader, how are you leveraging the best of what is available today, particularly in terms of digital transformation? Because there are a number of students here who would have an interest in that.
So I think, coming from a different era, right? I grew up where my father would give me a piece of paper and there would be a typewriter. Itse galti mat karna, isme delete nahi hota, right? And you had to write on that. I would say कि मैंने अपनी field में देखा है what are the advancements that are there today, right? For you to be able to do things more efficiently, save time. And technology, for the sake of technology, I don't get, because that's not what excites me and I don't understand it, right? But technology where it makes my life easier. कि if I can check today कि मेरा जो latest digital ad चल रहा है in the North American market, how is it performing versus the KPIs? Who's watching? For how long? What are they taking? Where do they stop? When I know that there's a 6-second skip on YouTube, those 6 seconds really matter. And then even today, I see people making ads where they have said nothing in 6 seconds. Nothing is holding me from hitting that skip button and moving on to the video I really want to see, because it's very focused and targeted what I'm looking for. Just targeting consumers in the sense that if I were to say कि इस defense के लाहौर के area में इस age से इस age की खातून जिसकी preferences ये 3-4 चीजें हो, I can target and say कि उसके phone तक और उसके Insta और इसके YouTube तक मेरा message पहुंच जाए, and we can do that, and then I can see how is she reacting and responding to that, right? So those are the things which I think makes life more exciting. There was a time कि जब लोग घरों में बैठ के लिखते थे कि हम कौन सा चैनल देख रहे हैं और फिर वो एग्रीगेट करके कोई कंपनी हमें डेटा दिया करती थी. To this being right on our fingertips. We can today see कि हमारे, not even today, I would say 10 years ago, we could see कि हमारे कौन से salesmen किस वक्त किस दुकान पे जा रहे हैं, right? Because they are required to, GPS. So we can trace, we can have a map of Lahore and see कि इस वक्त लोग कहाँ हैं, 10 बजे कहाँ थे, 11 बजे कहाँ हैं, 12 बजे कहाँ पे दुकान में कॉल शुरू की, कहाँ पे ख़त्म की. This is amazing. It was not there when I was a sales manager. I had to actually.
हाथ से कॉल शीट्स भरते थे.
Exactly. और अगर देखना है कि कौन कहाँ है तो वहाँ जाना पड़ेगा. That's the only way to find out अगर वो आज नवाबशाह गया है कि नहीं. You have to go to नवाबशाह. There is no other way of knowing कि वो वहाँ पे है कि नहीं. वहाँ सिग्नल ही नहीं आते तो फ़ोन भी वो घर पे भी बंद करके बैठा होगा तो it's either at home or नवाबशाह could be either of the two. So I think that this is a very different time, and I look at it. I see a lot of people saying कि we embrace because this is the future. To me, it's about how does this make my life easier, and that of my team, and that's very important. जो आपको salesman का example दे रहा हूँ, I remember जब हम ये automation की तरफ जाते थे 10-15 साल पहले, हम लोगों को कहते थे paper से हट जाओ and do this, and there was resistance because change, what we don't understand, we don't like, because we know what we already are living through. So change we don't like. As long as we can make people understand that the change is better for them. And I was struggling with this with my teams, my own. They would find 200 reasons why not to take that handheld into the market. असल reason ये होता था कि उन्हें लगता था हम इस वक्त अब track होंगे 24/7. लेकिन reason वो ये देते थे, आज बारिश हुई तो नहीं ले गया. मैं आज उस एरिया में जा रहा था, वहाँ पे फ़ोन छिन जाता है इसलिए नहीं ले गया. आज रमज़ान है तो नहीं ले गया. आज मुहर्रम है तो नहीं ले गया. आज टैक्स आने वाला है तो नहीं ले गया. All of those things. And then I was in the market one day. I was a sales manager at that time. और एक लड़का खड़ा हुआ बड़े diligently किसी और कंपनी का, was filling it out on the. So I went to him. I said, ये कर रहे हो, इससे मुसीबत नहीं होती, तुम्हें हर वक्त वो देख रहे होते हैं. He said to me, नहीं, इससे तो मेरा काम आसान होता है, right? वो पहले इतने कागज़ लेके मैं खुद भूल जाता था किस चीज़ का ऑर्डर लेना है किसका नहीं लेना, right? So I realized, and I had my supervisor with me. I said, yeah, this is what we need. This company is doing it right. We are not. We need to convince our salesman that this technology is good for him or
It's going
her.
to make his life better.
Yes, not because हम डंडा लेके उसके पीछे लगे रहेंगे, वो 200 reason बताता रहेगा. So, I said, let's find a way to do this, and also let's hire this guy. He can help us maybe to do it. But the point I'm trying to make is that's where technology, if it makes life easier.
Facilitate करे अगर.
बिल्कुल, absolutely.
So I looked at your website. I did a bit of homework, and I want to move beyond just the business side. And तो आपकी एक social responsibility भी है as a corporation, and I'm sure as a leader. And I notice you have a position on many of the SDGs, right? On poverty and on food and climate and gender. Talk about one or two of them in terms of your priorities and what actionable steps you're taking. And why is it important for a corporate leader to look beyond just the top line and the bottom line?
I think, in today's world, organizations need to be more than just about, doing business. Because there is a lot of things to do, right? You talked about some of those issues today. And today, I think, we want to have a purpose. We want to have a purpose in life that's beyond the fact कि मैंने last quarter में अपने results पूरे कर दिए और share value यहाँ से यहाँ चली गई. And especially, I think, for the younger generation, we are definitely more aware than we were, when we were their age. But they're that aware today, or maybe even more, right? I learned from my son things that I don't know. And when I was 18 and my father was 46, I couldn't teach him anything, right? He already knew a lot more than I did. It's changed now.
आपने चर्चिल की autobiography पढ़ी है?
नहीं, मैंने
उसमें उसने लिखा कि when I was 16, I was surprised at how little my parents knew. But then he writes, but by the time I turned 21, I was surprised at how much they had learned. वही हाल है आपका. Anyway.
Exactly. So I think for me the critical thing is that every organization should be doing their little bit. कहीं पे मैं कहता हूँ आपके दफ्तर के बाहर एक पार्क है जो जिसकी लाइटें ख़राब है, आप वही बनवा दें, कुछ करें to help community so that people can go and use it. And so we've obviously, being a large organization, we have utni zimmedari aur बढ़ जाती है. We have identified a few areas which are closer to us, and it's not just about being closer to us, it's where we feel we can create more of an impact, right? Because I think it's good if this purpose is linked with your business. Because if it's not linked with your business, anybody can say कि हम plastic reduction करेंगे, right? But
alignment होनी चाहिए.
Yes, right. So I used to work for a health and hygiene company. So we were very clear that we've got to make sure that we pick up good hygiene as the basis of good health, and then build on those things. And then we would say कि होगा साफ पाकिस्तान program launch करते हैं. What are the things we're doing to teach people कि हाथ धो, जरासीम हर जगह हैं, 80% बीमारियां तो सिर्फ इससे हैं कि आप हाथ नहीं धोते. You don't keep the place where you sit clean and things like that. So that was directly linked to what we used to do. Similarly, when I look at Shan, I think for us, the purpose that this company existed, and you were talking about the chairman and his stories, the purpose was that how do we make women's lives easier, right? Because there were women who were getting married or leaving the country, and suddenly from a joint family and the mother and the grandmother to a housewife and on their own, and expected to make the same kind of delicious food that was being cooked at their homes. And that to us was a starting position. How can we save time? How can we have a premix? How can we put something together? And now we've come to a place where we ask the question, why should a woman be cooking at all? Why is it not the man's job to also cook, right? So we take this gender equality thing into everything we do. So I can tell you, if I'm interviewing for a position, or मेरे पास 2 candidates आए हैं, I've made it mandatory that one of them has to be a woman. And sometimes they tell me that top 3 candidates are men. So I'm like, उसके बाद 4th पे woman है, तो उसको ले आओ, and the top candidate for man, I will interview both of them and we'll decide. Because I think it's about creating a balance which is not there today, right? When I joined the Reckitt management committee in Pakistan, of my 11 direct reports, there was 1 female. In 3 years when I left, there were 4, right? So it's not just कि आप बातें करें, but if you can actually prove with action that you're doing what you're saying. And we were a better team because of that. My experience of 20 plus years in 4 or 5 different countries working there, women make better professionals. And I say this as a man, they're just better. And I'm being very serious because I have come to the conclusion it's because maybe they have to work harder to prove. Because many men still feel, we are entitled. Should they be here? Okay, अब शादी हो जाएगी तो फिर चले जाएंगे, बच्चा हो जाएगा तो चले जाएंगे, यार मैं तो यहीं पे होऊंगा, इनका नहीं पता. They have to work that much harder to prove, and then when they do that, they are just better. And I think I don't want to generalize, but I have overwhelming evidence of this, right? That I can give you with examples, where I've seen my own team members do a better job at the same task than I have, and I'm looking around, क्या कोई देख तो नहीं रहा कि यार ये कितना अच्छा कर रही है, और मैं इतना अच्छा नहीं कर रहा था इसी चीज़ को, right? So I've learned from that, and I've said, okay, let's partner and collaborate and bring in more. But I think
we have lots of examples at LUMS as well.
Exactly. But I think it doesn't end there. To me, if you watch our ads, you see that a husband and their children are cooking, or the mother-in-law is cooking, but the bahu is not, right?
Okay.
तो एक इश्तिहार मैं देखता हूँ कि उसमें वो मर्द हजरात आते हैं और उन्होंने अपनी शर्ट पे कुछ गिरा लिया होता है, and the woman is like, don't worry, I have this detergent powder. That is one. My question is, why is it her job? You are the one who made a mess, right? Why
Clean it up yourself.
Clean it up yourself. So I don't want any mass communication even to go out. हम जो office में करते हैं around driving the right culture, driving the right rules and regulations, because it's not just about bringing women in. It's about making sure that they are thriving in the environment where they are. They are given a chance to win, right? Just like everybody else is.
Right.
So, and that's not always the case. It's amazing how much pushback you get when you try to do things like this, right? From the environment and the culture, and even from other women in the office, not just the men. So it's a cultural thing. it's a societal thing and it's global in many ways, right? But शायद दूसरे उससे अब address करने में हमसे आगे हैं, हम थोड़ा पीछे रह गए. But to me it's also about कि एक communication जो हमारी जाएगी, what's the message that we're giving out, right? That why should the woman be cooking? So we started off with a very simple, वो कि यार ज़िंदगी आसान करते हैं. But today we'd like to think that we are enabling women to be pursuing what they love. If they love cooking, fantastic. If they don't love it, that's okay. You know, the kids can make dinner. The
Such
husband can.
positive messaging and role modeling and behavior modeling. Amazing. So we're literally at the end. Can we have 5 more minutes? Okay. So we're coming to the end, and the one thing that we didn't talk about is disappointment and failure and not always being successful. तो इंग्लिश में जो एक्सप्रेशन आपने सुना होगा, सक्सेस हैज़ 1,000 फादर्स बट फेलियर इज़ एन ऑर्फन. तो आपकी ये जो एक बड़ी इम्प्रेसिव सी ट्रेजेक्ट्री है, इसमें कोई उसका भी स्कोप था, एंड व्हाट डिड यू लर्न फ्रॉम दैट?
I think बहुत सारे instances हैं, and we tend to remember the successes because they stay with us. But as you said, you know, I think failure and tough times, you know, they teach you in a way that success doesn't. ये जो लोग कहते हैं ना business cycle आती है, मेरे ख्याल से cycle इसलिए आती है क्योंकि जब times are good, you're not preparing for the bad times. तो इससे cycle आ जाती है, right? Because then things go
Dip
down.
आता है.
When things go down, you're pushed against the wall, right? And then you start doing things कि वापस आप ऊपर लेके आते हैं उसको. जब आप ऊपर आ जाते हैं, आप फिर भूल जाते हैं कि यार अभी कहाँ से आए थे, और फिर आप enjoy करना शुरू हो जाते हैं the good life, और फिर वो नीचे जाता है. And that's what the cycles are. So yes, I think I've lived through a lot of these. I've learned from a lot of them. कि हमने क्या गलतियाँ की, whether they would be a product launch or whether they would be कि हमने ये go to market strategy change की थी. I would say कि even a failure, you have to define कि आपकी definition में failure की क्या timelines हैं. Because I've made changes to teams, to structures, और अगले 6 महीने रिजल्ट नहीं आए, 9 महीने रिजल्ट नहीं आए, और मैंने सोचा कि मुझे जो कुछ आता था मैंने किया है, व्हाई इज दिस नॉट हैपनिंग. और उसके बाद 1 साल, 2 साल, 3 साल रिजल्ट्स आए, एंड वी न्यू कि इट वाज द थिंग्स जो हमने बेसिक चीज़ें ठीक की थी उस वक्त. एंड बिजनेस टेक्स इट टाइम टू टर्न अराउंड, एंड दैट्स व्हाट इट वाज. सो वो पहले 6 महीने लगते थे कि यार वी आर फेलिंग, वी आर नॉट डूइंग वेल, व्हाट एल्स कैन वी डू, रनिंग आउट ऑफ आइडिया, सब कुछ कर लिया है. बट आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट, सो माई लर्निंग इज के लगे रहें relentlessly. If you're doing the right thing, if you know you're doing the right thing, results will follow. And
It's such a great point. I think between having a measured outlook and having a quarterly,
exactly.
perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to make sure that you are following through with what you're doing, giving it time. I think I've developed more patience than I used to have. I think I've started to take a longer term view on things, and on people as well, and I think that's kind of what's helped me, or I've learned from the mistakes that I've made.
Final questions. Oh my God. Okay, Mansoor.
Just curious to know, after having worked at multinationals for much of your working life, have you had an opportunity to try and decode or at least identify what excites the Pakistani business owner? Because you're now in that area. You're in that area where perhaps at some point the initial founder realizes that it's time to appoint a CEO, or much later in time, it's time to appoint my son or my daughter. So it's a very different animal that perhaps you'll be dealing with. Any thoughts on the matter?
I think it is, and I think that was one of the reasons why, I wanted to experience, the stakeholder management when it comes to the board, when it comes to, having a view on the business, which is very different. I think in many ways, the large local corporations are really understanding now the value of professional management. And I think today they have the scale to also put in people. Because पहले ये होता था कि if you were a 5 billion rupee company, your bottom line is, maybe 50 million or 500 million, and that's, money you need to put into things and take some money home. But today, if you're a 50 billion company, your bottom line is 5 billion. So you have the money for yourself, yet you have the money to make sure that somebody can run the operations for you day in and day out. So I think एक तो scale से वो हुआ है, और वो it's because they realize we can't do the things that this person. I think they've understood the value of professional management. कि ये इस कंपनी को 10 गुना बढ़ा सकते हैं, हम शायद डबल कर सकते थे इस टाइम में. So what I was saying, playing to one's strengths. And this is not necessarily a Pakistani thing. I was in the Middle East about, maybe 8 weeks ago. And I was talking to the owner of a large group of companies, an Emirati. And he was saying the same thing. And he was saying that I have understood that मेरे बेटे की क्या strengths हैं, but also जो हम लोग लेके आ रहे हैं वो क्या perspective लेके आते हैं, और मैं कभी इस तरह नहीं कर सकता था. So therefore मैंने उसको भी कुछ काम दिया हुआ है, लेकिन इनको भी रख लिया है, because I understand what they can do for my business. So I think that's it's evolving, it's changing, the scale is helping. And I think then it's on organizations to continue to deliver the kind of results where people are, उनको ये नज़र आता रहे कि अच्छा, what does professional management do for my business? And I think that's kind of what's driving it. The other is, I think from a multinational point of view, it's about organization building, right? Multinationals the founder, the owners, they're somewhere very far away. Nobody knows who they are. They could be somebody holding a block of shares, Paki to public and everybody, but they have built systems and organizations across the world that replicate what they want to do, what that standardizes. They have the right governance in place. कि उसके अंदर कोई, everybody knows the rules with which they operate. And that's something that we need to be able to replicate with local companies. कि ये कैसे करें कि okay, पाकिस्तान में हमारे बड़े operations हैं, but we have operations in North America as well, in the UK as well, in the Middle East as well. How do we replicate? Because the leadership can't be everywhere. That those people are leaders themselves. That they step up, that they live by exactly the same principles and rules that the founder was or the CEO is, and you continue to drive that. I think that's something that we have to work on and build.
Great. Final question, and then we are definitely wrapping up.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Being an MBA marketing student, I have two interrelated questions.
नहीं, एक ही की इजाजत है जी, और
So
बहुत
it
brief
has two
रखें,
parts.
because we've run out of
Right.
time. Thank you.
So one thing is, I wanted to ask, what is the role of R&D in your organization? Because more or less your products are relatively the same from past many years. So what is the role of R&D in your organization? And secondly, tell us something about your advertisements. Do you always, nail the emotional side of in all of your ads? So a little bit on that. Thank you.
So I think very quickly, R&D is at the heart of what we do, because that's how the business kind of started. We're putting together various spices and saying, okay, iska taste kaisa hai, aur aisi koi cheez market mein nahi hai, right? And we continue to evolve. So even to the extent that we have products in Pakistan, but we understand that Middle East mein thode se taste profile different hai. Thoda sa, hame, for example, uski hot वो कम करना है, medium पे लेके आना है, and things like that. There are things that we continue to do. We continue to expand our business as well. And we understand that we need to go into other areas if we want to be a true food company and just move away from just being spices and so on and so forth. इसी में हमने बहुत सारी चीज़ें different parts of the world में, North America में हमने एक frozen Italian range launch कर दी है, because halal frozen food वहाँ पे बहुत कम है तो अच्छा नहीं है. And because we are a taste company, if we can develop the right taste, we can do this. We want to expand this now into the UK and Australia and so on and so forth, because there are a lot of people in the market for halal foods जो उनको मिलते नहीं हैं. So this is one. I think on the advertising bit, I think it's about insights. Execution तो I think अच्छी हो जाती है, but it's about insight. कि आपकी insight क्या है? And if it is an insight that holds value with you, जैसे मैं थोड़ी देर पहले बात कर रहा था, if it's an insight which is driven by your purpose, okay, we want, then the emotion I think comes in it itself. And I think that the marketing team does an absolutely amazing job of that year after year.
Thank you. You're a wonderful conversationalist. You made it really easy. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you, Maria, for facilitating it. Thank you for the engaging audience. I know you may want to say a few words, so please.
Thank you. so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
We've had several of these leaders come over to LUMS, and today, what a wonderful story we heard. Your career path from the school, from St. Patrick's to IBA, to various corporations, and going overseas, and then again come back to Pakistan and go again and come back. And your learning that you said about leaders. I love this thing that when you said that it's a certain part of your career, you really wanted to get into the nitty gritty, get into what some people say, get into the trenches,
Right.
and really learn. And how it was very interesting how you said that you're sitting in a meeting and somebody says something, but because you had been in the trenches, you knew the answers, you knew how to. So it was a part of your career path that once you get into something, you talked about changing your path if you have to. And I thought that also was very interesting. Your research, your fundamentals of the firm has come from blending, research, changing taste, and you've continued that right across in all your things. I loved what you said about discipline, because consistency, relentlessness, I think those are certainly important elements of success, that you've just got to be at it through discipline. You talked about your failures, and yes, failure is what teaches us all. In fact, it teaches us more than success. And the last part that you said I really enjoyed, about women empowerment. I think that's a lovely thing. I've never heard that before, where you interview and how you balance in your candidates that you have for interviews. So overall, what a lovely story, and thank you for honoring us with your presence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Razak sir, if you could please stay here for a minute. Dr. Tariq Jadoon, if you could please come here as well. Back, up at here. We have a small token for you, Kashan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Watch your good. Thank you. Very well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.